Welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at lower body motion in the golf swing with a focus on the lead hip. So for any players looking to be more consistent with their delivery, or maybe just feel more stable with the movement of the bigger segments through impact, this could be a good video for you. Thanks once again for tuning in. So yet again we're looking at lower body motion in the golf swing with a focus on the movement of the lead hip and how we can move through impact with more control. So essentially, if a player typically moves well around their lead hip, the club delivery is very much more consistent. You're able to get more consistent low point, more compression. So let's look again at the lead hip. And today what I want to do is provide you with a little exercise to help you get a sensation of what it could feel like for you to really load in that lead hip and move into it nicely in the downswing and then through impact. And then what I'd also like to present you with is a feeling for moving around the lead hip in backswing, because I found that often players will compensate with the movement in the pelvis to help them to achieve a backswing, but then they end up in a position where it's hard for them to get into the position we want the lead hip to be in at impact. So we're going to give you a couple of reference points, one for impact and one for how the player moves through backswing to help them to achieve that impact position. Before I go into the exercises I want to share with you today and the drills and references, etc., just a little reminder to everyone watching that I'm doing more and more online lessons. So if you're interested in getting a specific take on your game from me, then go to ianmellorgolf.com for my online services and options that I offer there as well. Okay, so let's start off with the impact feel, because I find it's always helpful to have a clear understanding of where we're trying to get to, and I'm going to use the mini band for this. So bands, I find, in many ways are so helpful because they'll often exaggerate or heighten the sensation of the feeling that we're looking to achieve. So let's just put on the mini band here about 3 or 4 inches above our ankles. Okay, and then I'm just going to get into my normal setup position here. So just ignore the stick for now, really nothing to be taken into account with that. So I'm in my setup position here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to step back the trail foot so that the trail big toe lines up with the heel on my lead foot. So I've just stepped it back maybe 6-7 inches, something like that, and then I've maintained the same flexion in my ankle, knee and hip that I would have in my normal setup position around my lead leg. So what I'm going to do then is rotate towards the target, pushing off my big toe, and then hold a rotation towards the target here and just sense where I feel at most in my lead hip. So really very clear feeling there, especially with the band on. So again, I'm just pushing off my big toe, rotating towards the target, somewhat being aware of where I would want my head in relation to the ball as I'm moving through the shot there. So really great sense of how it would feel to move into and around the lead hip there in my golf swing. So excellent little exercise there. Definitely one I would encourage most players to explore. And also just mentioning here before I forget is that just for players, there's no really clear reference points for them where a player should get to unless you've explored that yourself and you've found out for yourself where works best for you. Essentially, we all have different anatomical makeup. So as far as like hip rotation and what we should achieve, it really is so independent to the player. So I try and present exercises here so that players, even with different anatomical makeups, you can get a sensation of what it means to you, and this is a great little exercise for that. Okay, so once you've played around with that and you've got a sense of how that could feel for you, and then pick up your club, take your stance, and try and get a sense of that similar feel with the club in hand and how you move into and around that lead hip. So that's the movement, the exercise there to help us with how it could feel to move into the lead hip there, in downswing, through the shot and into your finished position. Let's move on to the exercise now to help a player through backswing. Often in backswing, the pelvis can be the segment that adapts to help us to achieve the movement through backswing, but then it often ends up in a situation where it's harder for it to get into the movement that we were just going over there with the mini band on. So let's look at what we could do through backswing. And often what I see with players is that when the pelvis adapts, it'll often lose space between, let's say the pelvis and the ball, or the lead hip very evidently will move down and towards the ball. Also can be very evident to move like down and towards the target. So we see all these different compensations, and essentially, just almost oversimplifying it today, is if I was to set up, I mean, let's just say the middle of the lead hip is just on the inside of the ankle there. As I move through backswing, it really isn't going to move a lot in that place there. It might feel as though it moves in just a little, but it really isn't going to move a lot. So very different sensation there. So, and just to point out here is that in downswing, we're moving into internal rotation on that lead hip. Through backswing, we're more moving into external rotation. So we obviously want to make sure that we're moving very well through our hips in our golf swing. You'd be surprised how many players that I work with and get to help with their games where their hip mobility is just not where we need it to be, so they can move at their best in the game. So in backswing, external rotation. In downswing, internal. We're moving into internal rotation in that lead hip. So in backswing here, great little reference point here is that let's just say the hip is just on the inside of the ankle. It might move a little bit that way, but that really is it there, and very different feel there if we move well there. For players that have been moving through backswing and the hip's been moving towards the ball a little bit, it's going to feel really different, really going to feel as though that hip's staying back this way. I'm going to give you a really good little reference point here, is that as we achieve that feel of, let's just say, the hip moving slightly that way, as I said, between the feet, as we're doing that, the lead knee is not going to get out in front of the lead foot. So if I make a backswing here, my lead knee, I mean, it gets just maybe an inch in front of the laces there on my shoes, but doesn't get out in front of the lead knee. Lots of players, when the pelvis is accommodating, you'll see the knee move quite away in front of your toes there in the backswing, and then it's obviously very hard to get from here all the way into that position there. So from a timing standpoint, it is just going to be a lot more efficient, a lot easier to get to that impact position if we're much more controlled with the movement of the lead hip through the backswing. So one of my favorite little references for this is if we stick an alignment stick in the ground, or you could use the swing plate as I'm doing now, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to get this position so it's, as I look down, that stick is lined up with the front of my feet. Try and get this in the right spot there. I'm going to maintain, not get too close to that stick through backswing with my lead knee there. Really feels like I'm keeping a good amount of space. Feels like I'm actually creating space when I do this myself. Through backswing there, feels very powerful. And then from there, that's the feel with the mini band. Feels really, really like I just got a lot of space there. Much more control over that lead hip. I'm actually just going to move this a touch more this way, and then I'm going to hit one for you here. So always important to make sure you station exactly how you want it to help you. So here, lots of room there. Really feels different around my lead hip. Just really, really feeling it, slowing it down. That feels good there. Okay, now I'm just going to try and hit one, try my best to feel both those movements, just blending them together. Of course, you could just pick one for yourself. I often find that if you focus just on the backswing, players don't connect with what they need to in downswing, and they can often get a little heavy, some miss hits. I like to tie a few pieces together and always be very clear on what I'm trying to get to at impact. So if you want to improve your lead hip movement, play around with both of those, but just sometimes just the philosophies of, if you want to be better with your lead hip at impact, you need to be more aware of how it's just moving globally and through the whole swing. And even going back to setup, because if your pelvis is not in a good position at setup and the lead hip is, say, just not in a position where it has its optimal range, then you're going to accommodate through your swinging, and you're somewhat limited there from the get-go. So thank you once again for tuning in. Hopefully you can pick up a couple of pieces there from today to help you with your game.